everyone. This is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of Eye of the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful Rabbit Hole King, Dear Lauren Frey, Grim Clover, Internet Blood Sports, and the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon. So, lately there's been a lot of talk about Naughty Dog's remake of The Last of Us, a game that isn't even a decade old at this point in time. I don't think I've really talked about it that much because I think most people in the hardcore gaming sphere kind of understand Naughty Dog is on the way out. They're irrelevant. Druckmann is driving them into the ground. At this point, we're just kind of waiting for it to happen, like waiting for it to like the result of their actions with The Last of Us Part 2 to really catch up with them. And we're still kind of in that process, right? Like I commented on the fact that Jeff Keighley was so kind of dismissive of Druckmann during the Game Awards show when he came on and he tried like not the Game Awards, it was like the Summer Game Fest or whatever, when he tried to come on and started talking about like, oh man, we're producing a Last of Us multiplayer. We're producing this, we're doing that, and like Keeley was just like, haha, cool story, bro. Now get off my stage. Like it feels a lot like the only reason that anyone is going along with Druckmann's shit is because he has so much influence on the industry that he can kind of say and do whatever he wants, even though that like nobody really respects him or cares about what he's doing. I certainly don't. Right? Like I would have said that like I hated Naughty Dog's work back in the Uncharted days, but now it's gone like beyond even that. Like it's gone to the point where like even the people who were fanatics about the original Last of Us, who thought it was a masterpiece, who thought it was one of the best games ever made, who thought it was like a very mainstream appealing game to people, like who thought it was like some major thing, like a big deal. Like even those people have been alienated by The Last of Us Part 2. And those are the same people that are angry about the very idea of this game getting remade because Druckmann is overseeing the development of The Last of Us Part 1. And someone on 4chan really did a good job pointing this out. It's not The Last of Us remake, it's The Last of Us Part 1, right? They are the reason they're remaking part one is in order to make it fit in better with part two because a lot of people kind of noticed that like wait a minute. Wait a minute. They're changing some lore. They're changing some story elements. They're making out Joel to be like someone more terrible than he actually is. They're making they're pretending that like the zombie apocalypse is kind of like not really a thing anymore. They're pretending like um, it doesn't really mesh very well with like the original game. Like the entire point of The Last of Us Part Two makes no sense. Everything about nothing about The Last of Us Part Two really makes any sense. Like people love to make The Last of Us Part Two out to be like, oh, the only thing wrong with it is that they killed the protagonist of the previous game. But no, I just got done playing Fire Emblem Three Hopes today, right? And you can kill Byleth in that game. People love that, right? Because it really gives the game a kind of a kind of risk, right? That entire series at this point, the Three Houses line, is all about like fucking over people in certain routes, right? Like Edelgard dies in most routes. My favorite character, like she only lives in like Crimson Flower, where she wins, right? Or I suppose like the Black Eagle route in Three Hopes as well. Like this idea that like people rejected The Last of Us Part 2 purely because Joel dies is completely ignorant and out of touch with what actually happened. In that Naughty Dog produced a narrative that was so disastrously put together that nobody really respects it at all. And the thing is, I think even now, a lot of that has been kind of brushed aside and ignored to the point where I don't think a lot of people are even aware of it. However, I think in going back and remaking the original Last of Us and talking about like redoing that game and making that game out like Ellie to be the main protagonist and like fucking with Joel and fucking with like the lore and stuff like that. I think doing that is going to, and being able to like go back and play the original, which supposedly all the people who love the game did. I think it'll be a lot more obvious that there is something very wrong with Naughty Dog. It'll be more obvious, right? Being able to compare the remake to the original. Like, it's not something that can just be brushed aside, right? Like, we kind of saw this with Final Fantasy VII-R, where the gaming media, YouTubers, literally everyone, tried to declare this the best game ever. But the decisions they made, the choices they utilized, the process, like the actual fans, like players themselves, rejected it, right? And it looks more and more as if like nobody's getting all that excited for the sequels, right? To the remake, which is going to complete the story to Final Fantasy VII, which really should have been done in the base release, like in 2006 or something. There was no reason to wait this long for what we got. As of right now, Final Fantasy VII Remake is still not finished and never will be finished. I honestly expect at this point. So I I, not being a fan of The Last of Us, am not really the person to talk about to when it comes to like what Druckmann is going to change and what The Last of Us Part Two did. But I can tell you the reason why I'm not a fan of the original or the sequel or anything else Naughty Dog has ever produced. They're simply not a good company. Like when you get down to it, like Naughty Dog was never good. They've never produced anything worthwhile. Their most relevant games, like Crash Bandicoot, were just rip-offs of far superior Nintendo franchises like Donkey Kong Country and Super Mario 64. Like they cannot compete with what Nintendo is doing. And what's more, I think we're kind of reaching the point where the general public is starting to accept that. I think that's the major thing that's changed in the past 10 years since the original Last of Us came out. Um, the woke shit has come and gone, right? The woke shit is on the way out. People are starting to reject it. But I think, like, more tellingly, like, when it comes, like, the actual video game development cycle, the thing is, people are beginning to reject the PlayStation brand, right? People are beginning to like respect Nintendo more for their like commitment to making high quality products and high quality games. And Naughty Dog just isn't interested in doing that. They're more interested in becoming subversive. They're more interested in producing political propaganda. They're more interested in like uh, coming up with something. I suppose that will kind of subvert story storytelling expectations and like just annoy the fans, right? Like Druckmann just cannot produce a well-made story. Like he's not capable of it, right? And like I wonder how long this is going to go on before Sony finally cracks down on him. I wonder how long this is going to go on before it collapses. Because like this idea that companies are infallible, that they're too big to fail. It's just not true. Like we've seen this with Netflix, we've seen this Disney. Like people are starting to like push back against like some of the more disgusting aspects of these practices. It's not even about the quality. It's about like the reason why they're doing this, why they're so aggressively pushing their propaganda into our entertainment. And more and more people are like disavowing certain companies, certain brands, certain ideas, and it's going to exponentially grow from here. That's why I mentioned that like woke shit is over, right? It's not because people are stop are it's not because the establishment is going to stop pushing it. It's because like people are going to like increasingly start pushing back against it, right? Like I was specifically raised to respect the LGBT community, right? By my schools, by my community, by everyone around me, and now I fucking hate them, right? Same general concept, right? I People are learning why you can't allow these people to have their way when it comes to like what they try and sell you. You have to actively reject it. You can't just consume this kind of nonsense and expect the quality to remain the same because they're not interested in quality. They're interested in like controlling society and manipulating you to believe things that simply aren't true, right? And I think that's kind of what this comes down to. Why we keep seeing like the same kind of propaganda over and over again in film and TV and video games is that trying to convince you of a reality that simply doesn't exist, right? And that's what we're going to get with the Last of Us remake. Neil Druckmann and Naughty Dog are going to try and convince you that the original didn't happen the way you remember it, right? They're going to present Joel in the worst possible way. They're going to glamorize Ellie. They're going to like do all this stuff, and they're going to they're going to milk they're going to drive that horse into the ground, right? They're going to do everything they can to destroy this IP and then move on to the next IP to ruin, assuming that people allow them to do that. And my thing is, my honest belief is we didn't lose anything with the decline of Naughty Dog or PlayStation or The Last of Us. There's so much good in the world. It's very difficult to imagine that that all of it could be corrupted. The way I am now, the way the media I consume and the things I enjoy, I really don't experience these kinds of things at all. You know, like the people I see struggling with this, the people I have, the people I see complaining about this all the time, they come off as pure consumers, right? Like people who just blindly consume products just because they exist. And my advice has always been to just stop doing that, right? Just live your life, move on, and suddenly your life is better. You know what I mean? That's kind of my view on it. That's always been my view on it. Is that I don't really respect this mindset that that you should constantly consume Warhammer 40K products, right? That you should constantly consume Star Wars, the new Star Trek, all of this stuff that's been honestly probably pretty degenerate from the beginning. Like I feel almost as if we need to accept the fact that this stuff isn't good for you. People have always treated that entertainment it's harmless and stuff like that. The thing is though, it's not just entertainment, right? For a lot of people, for a certain demographic of people, this is their life. This is all they really care about in this world. This is all they really look forward to. And that's kind of pathetic, honestly. And I think my advice, rather than fixing entertainment to be wholesome and better, you should just ignore it. You should just let it die, right? One of the realizations I had when just realizing that there's nothing good on TV, I kind of wondered why that was, and the reality is that the the simple fact is good people simply don't watch TV, right? Good people are doing things with their lives. Good people are out spending time with their families or reading books or enjoying their lives. They're not sitting at home watching South Park all day. You know that's fucking stupid, right? Whenever I see people complaining about the declining quality of TV, I just think to myself well, you're you're enabling it, you're supporting it, you're not doing anything else in your life. It just and I think the same is true for non-Nintendo gaming. I think the same is true for the comic book industry, the tabletop, seeing these people constantly bitch about the declining quality of this instead of just enjoying their lives, I think, is rather pathetic. And that's kind of my advice. And I think it's a big reason why I haven't really talked about The Last of Us in a while, because it is irrelevant. It is a dead IP. It's not going to it's not going to continue growing. It's done. And now we're just kind of waiting for the hammer to drop and Druckmann to get axed and the studio to fold and PlayStation to stop producing consoles. It's coming. It's been coming for the past 10 years. People thought I was insane when I said Nintendo would make a comeback from the Wii U, but they did. And now we're starting to see the repercussions of that, where Sony can no longer compete with Nintendo, a company they've been trying to drive into bankruptcy since the 90s. It is it's been a wild ride, but video games are about to be saved, right? In a lot of ways they already have, because even though there still technically are competitors to Nintendo hardware, Nintendo's games are still great, they're still enjoyable, I still like them. And Sony couldn't ruin video games. when if something like The Last of Us is ruined, if something like the Star Wars is ruined, maybe, just maybe, it wasn't worth supporting to begin with.